In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Known as the Great Imam, his school is followed by the majority of the world's Muslims. A man with immense piety and sincerity, the founding father of Islamic jurisprudence, and one of the great personalities of Islamic history, this is the life of Imam Abu Hanifah.
سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك.
1,400 years ago, the darkness of the world was to be illuminated with the birth of the final messenger of Allah. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. He was sent to the desert land of Arabia, which was soaked in traditional paganism and unimaginable barbaric practices. He was the seal of all prophets. His name was Muhammad. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. His noble heart was chosen as the vessel for the revelation of the Qur'an, which was conveyed to him by the angel Jibreel. The entire 114 chapters of the glorious Qur'an were revealed as divine universal guidance for the whole of mankind over a period of 23 years. Enduring much hardship, Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, finally completed his mission by cleansing the Arabian Peninsula of idolatry. During his lifetime, he served as the fountain of knowledge to those around him, both teaching and explaining the message of the Qur'an. After the death of the Prophet, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, the leadership of the Muslim community was handed to Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, the first rightly guided Caliph of Islam. Abu Bakr was forced to deal with uprisings against central rule, some claiming tribal independence, some refusing to pay the zakat, while others were led by people claiming prophethood. These were known as the Wars of Apostasy, and the worst of these were against Musaylima al-Kazab. Up to 2,500 companions were killed. Campaigns also took place against the Byzantines in Jordan and Syria, and against the Persian Empire of the Sassanids in Iraq. The Caliph Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, followed Abu Bakr. During this period, Damascus and the whole of Syria was brought under Muslim rule, as well as Palestine and Iraq. Soon, the whole of Persia followed, while the Byzantine army was finally driven out of Egypt. Under the Caliph Uthman, may Allah be pleased with him, the borders of the Muslim world were extended beyond Kabul in the east and Tripoli in the west, while the creation of a formidable navy challenged the Byzantine sea power, making possible the capture of Cyprus and Rhodes. Then, with the ascension of the fourth rightly guided Caliph, Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, the Muslim empire reached as far as Spain in the west and China in the east. Due to this expansion, the companions had spread to far and distant lands, taking with them their knowledge and understanding of Islam. The rapid expansion of Islam developed a thirst for knowledge in these new lands. Students would sit at the feet of the companions and rigorously study the prophetic message. The companions differed in some of their legal rulings, hence opinions in different parts of the Islamic world would differ slightly. The golden period of the four rightly guided caliphs was now at an end, and Muslim governance was now in the hands of the tribe of Banu Umayyah, who set forth the expansion of the Umayyad Caliphate. It is narrated in Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Messenger of Allah, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said,
لو كان العلم عند ثريا لتناوله رجال من
if knowledge were to be placed at the highest star, even then men from the people of Persia would have attained it. In the early years of the Umayyad Caliphate was born Nu'man bin Thabit bin Zutay, better known as Abu Hanifah. His grandson Ismail states,
we are of Persian origin and have never been slaves. My grandfather, Abu Hanifah, was born in 80 Hijri. His father, Thabit, called upon Caliph Ali to pay his respects. Caliph Ali was gracious enough to pray for him and his family, and I believe his prayer bore fruit.
Abu Hanifah was born in Kufa in Iraq during the reign of the Caliph Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. Abu Hanifah's father was a wealthy silk trader and a good and upright Muslim. The governor of Iraq under the Caliph Marwan was Hajjaj bin Yusuf, a cruel tyrant who inflicted pain and misery upon those under his authority. When Abu Hanifah was a child of just 6 years, the Caliph Marwan died, and succession was handed to his son Walid. Walid's ascension to the seat of Caliph brought much excitement as new lands were conquered, including Spain and Sind, as well as other large territories. On one occasion, the ruler of Rome sent an envoy to Baghdad with 3 questions to challenge the Muslims. Abu Hanifah was a young man, yet he stood in attendance with his father as they watched the event unfold before them. The scholars were quickly gathered, and the Roman envoy climbed upon a high platform and began the challenge.
I have come with 3 questions. If you answer them, then I will leave you with a great amount of wealth, which I have brought from the King of Rome. As for the questions, they are: what was there before Allah? In which direction does Allah face? And what is Allah engaged in at this moment?
There was a silence, as even the scholars struggled to think of the answers. The young Abu Hanifah stood watching, and then turned to his father.
Oh, my dear father, I will answer him and silence him.
The Roman then turned to the young Abu Hanifah and repeated his first question.
So, tell me, what was there before Allah?
Do you know how to count?
Why, of course.
Then count down from 10.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
But what comes before 1?
There is nothing before 1. That is it.
Well then, if there obviously is nothing before the arithmetic 1, then how do you expect that there should be anything before the one who is absolute truth, all eternal, everlasting, the first, the last, the manifest, the hidden?
Then tell me, in which direction is Allah facing?
Bring a candle and light it, and tell me in which direction the flame is facing.
But the flame is just light. It spreads in each of the 4 directions, north, south, east and west. It does not face any one direction only.
Then, if this physical light spreads in all 4 directions, such as you cannot tell me which way it faces, then what do you expect of Allah, the light of the heavens and the earth, light upon light? Allah faces all directions at all times. Wait. You are the one who is asking the questions, and I am the one who is giving the answer to these challenges. It is only fair that you should come down to where I am standing, and that I should go up to where you are right now, in order that the answers may be heard as clearly as the questions.
Then tell me, what is Allah doing at this moment?
At this moment, when Allah found upon this high platform a liar and mocker of Islam, He caused him to descend and brought him low. And as for the one who believed in the oneness of Allah, He raised him up and established the truth. Every day He exercises universal power.
This incident gave a glimpse of the brilliance and genius that lay in the young Abu Hanifah. During this period, the young Abu Hanifah had neither incentive nor opportunity to acquire education. As with most children, he had memorized the Qur'an at an early age, but did not pursue religious knowledge. Rather, following in his father's footsteps, he took to being a businessman. Setting up a silk weaving factory, his energy and intelligence were to develop his business into a prosperous enterprise. Then, in the year 95 Hijri, Hajjaj died, and was followed a year later by the Caliph Walid. Walid's successor was Sulaiman bin Abdul Malik, and unbeknown to the young Abu Hanifah, the new Caliph's reign would dramatically change the focus of his life. During the time of the Caliph Sulaiman, religious learning grew and began to flourish with new centers of learning. It was during this time that Abu Hanifah felt an urge to acquire knowledge. A case of mistaken identity was to prove to be the catalyst in his newfound quest for knowledge. One day, Abu Hanifah passed by the house of Sha'bi, a famous Imam of Kufa at the time. The Imam mistook Abu Hanifah for one of his students and called him into his house.
Where are you going, young man?
I'm visiting a merchant.
I mean to ask, whose classes do you attend?
Nobody's.
I see signs of intelligence in you. You ought to sit in the company of learned men.
It was a brief conversation, yet its implications were immense. The words of the Imam struck a chord with Abu Hanifah, who was to begin a monumental journey on the road of knowledge. A journey which many would embark upon, but few would complete. Iraq had become a center of knowledge, and there was no shortage of teachers for Abu Hanifah. It was in the year 102 Hijri that Abu Hanifah began to study with Hamad ibn Sulaiman, a well-known sheikh of Islamic jurisprudence at the time. Hamad had grown up in Iraq and had studied with the leading authorities of the day, such as Ibrahim an-Nakhai and Sha'bi. Both of these authorities had studied with teachers who drew their knowledge from the companions Abdullah ibn Masud and Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with them. Hamad had heard traditions from the Prophet's personal attendant, Anas bin Malik, may Allah be pleased with him. While a young man, Abu Hanifah also had the honor of meeting several companions of Allah's Apostle, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. The great Hadith master, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, confirms this.
There were many companions still alive in Imam Abu Hanifah's day. In 80 Hijri, when he was born in Kufa, one of the companions, Abdullah bin Ali Aufa, who died in 82 Hijri, or perhaps later, was living in the city. Ibn Sa'd has reported on good authority that Abu Hanifah met Anas bin Malik. The Imam was a contemporary of some of the companions and met a number of them, as reported by Ibn Sa'd. In view of this, Abu Hanifah belongs to the category of successors to the companions, a fact that has not been established in respect of the other Imams who were alive in his time.
Abu Hanifah therefore has the honor of the title of Tabi'i, a name given to a successor of the companions. Although his meeting of the companions is confirmed, he never quoted a single tradition from them. The scholars of Hadith in Kufa would refrain from admitting anyone below the age of 20 into their classes, fearing that any student below that age would not have the maturity to understand the meanings of the traditions of the Holy Prophet, therefore lowering the risk of misunderstanding and misconstruing the narrations. This is what prevented Abu Hanifah from hearing traditions directly from the mouths of the surviving companions. In his early days of learning, Abu Hanifah spent much time traveling and acquiring knowledge from various sources. His main teacher was Hamad, whose school was the most popular in Iraq. Amongst his pupils were the most eminent minds and scholars of the day. Hamad, being a rich man, was able to devote most of his time to the teaching of his pupils. On the first day of attending Hamad's lectures, Abu Hanifa was made to sit on the left, the row for beginners. But within a few days, Hamad had pointed Abu Hanifa out as the student with the best memory and intelligence, and asked him to sit directly in front of him. Abu Hanifa attended Hamad's classes for the next 18 years until Hamad died. There were virtually no scholars in Iraq at whose feet Abu Hanifa did not sit. Islam had spread at lightning speed across the Arabian Peninsula and beyond, and with it the companions had dispersed to far and distant lands, taking their knowledge with them. In order to learn the various traditions, Abu Hanifa knew he would have to travel to various parts of the Islamic world. Basra had emerged as a rival center for learning. It had become a treasure house of traditions of the Holy Prophet, mostly due to the presence of Hassan al-Basri. Before long, Abu Hanifa made his way to Basra. Also present in Basra was Shu'bah, a companion of Hassan al-Basri and a great scholar in his own right. Soon, Abu Hanifa was attending the classes of Shu'bah, and it wasn't long before his intelligence was again noticed. Often, in his absence, Shu'bah would praise Abu Hanifa.
Just as I know the sun is bright, I know for certain that learning and Abu Hanifa are doubles of each other.
Abu Hanifa's intelligence and quick understanding were becoming renowned. Yahya bin Mu'in, one of the teachers of Imam Bukhari, observed,
"It is enough for me to know that Shu'bah permitted him to teach hadith and narration. Shu'bah, after all, was Shu'bah."
Abu Hanifa spent his time with other various teachers in different parts of Iraq, but now the time had come for him to travel to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, the fountainheads of religious learning. Mecca was a city bulging with masters of the prophetic tradition, who had had access to the companions. The birthplace of Islam and home to the Kaaba, it had numerous visitors, being both a center of knowledge and a bustling trade city. The most popular and respected school in Mecca was that of Atta bin Abi Rabah. Soon Abu Hanifa was attending his lectures, and it wasn't long before Atta would order room to be made for Abu Hanifa at the front of the class whenever he attended. His keen intellect had once again made an impression, and Atta realized that he indeed had before him a most brilliant student. Also in Mecca at the time was Ikrimah, the pupil of the great companion Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him. Ikrimah had also learnt Islamic knowledge from other companions such as Ali ibn Abi Talib and Abu Hurairah. Soon, Abu Hanifa was attending his classes and excelling as he always did. Medina was a treasure house of hadith and the Prophet's home in his last days as well as his resting place. When Abu Hanifa arrived in Medina, two of the main sources of knowledge and rulings were Sulayman and Salim bin Abdullah. Sulayman had been a servant of the Prophet's wife Maimuna, and Salim was the grandson of Umar ibn al-Khattab. Abu Hanifa attended both classes and sat and learnt traditions from them. He was to travel many times to Mecca and Medina. On each occasion he would sit with his teachers and learn traditions. While in Medina he sat with Imam Malik and attended his lectures. Although Imam Malik was 13 years his junior, Abu Hanifa would sit and listen to traditions from him. On one occasion, the great scholar Abdullah bin Mubarak was sitting with Imam Malik when an older man entered. Imam Malik hastened him to sit beside him and received him with great honor and respect. After he had left, Imam Malik turned to Abdullah.
Do you know who this man was? He was Abu Hanifa of Iraq, who, if he wanted to, could prove this pillar to have been made of gold.
Abu Hanifa's reputation was spreading fast, yet all was not good. Many scholars of this period, without meeting Abu Hanifa, were led to believe that he relied upon his own reasoning and analogy rather than the prophetic hadith in solving legal problems. On one visit to Medina, Abu Hanifa met Imam Bakir, a member of the family of the Prophet of Allah. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Imam Bakir held a similar opinion of Abu Hanifa.
So you are the one who contradicts the tradition of my grandfather on the basis of analogy?
God forbid! Who dare contradict hadith? After you resume your seat, sir, I shall explain my position. Who is the weaker, man or woman?
Woman.
Which of them is entitled to the larger share in the inheritance?
The man.
Now, if I'd been making deductions by analogy, I should have said that the woman should get the larger share, because on the face of it, the weaker one is entitled to more consideration. But I have not said so. To take up another subject, which do you think is the higher duty, prayer or fasting?
Prayer.
That being the case, it should be permissible for a woman during her menstruation to delay her prayers and miss her fasts. But the ruling I give is that she can delay her fasting, but need not make up her prayers.
So impressed was Imam Bakir with Abu Hanifa that he kissed his forehead. Abu Hanifa learnt much from Imam Bakir as well as from his son, Imam Jafir Sadiq. Abu Hanifa's reputation and popularity spread like wildfire. Soon, news of his imminent arrival in a village or town would bring thousands to assemble and meet him and listen to his lectures. It was a popularity that was not to go unnoticed by the ruling establishment. Although Abu Hanifa had reached the level of mujtahid in Islam, that is, somebody who was able to derive rulings directly from the Qur'an and Hadith, it wasn't until after the death of his teacher, Hamad, that he would establish his own school. Circumstances dictated that he take up the professorial chair that was once occupied by his teacher. In the initial stages, only former pupils of Hamad attended the classes. Yet in a few days its popularity grew to such an extent that most of the other schools in Kufa closed down and became part of Abu Hanifa's. Barring Spain, all parts of the Islamic world were represented in his school. From Mecca to Baghdad, from Damascus to Algiers, and from Georgia to Bukhara, all came in search of knowledge. Abu Hanifa's influence was as far-reaching as the territory of the Caliph. While Abu Hanifa was busy imparting his knowledge on all those around him, major changes were happening in the political establishment. Rebellions and revolts were taking place in different parts of the Umayyad Caliphate. Caliphs would come and go, yet the troubles remained all the same. During this period, the conspiracy to install the Abbasids on the caliphal throne was gaining pace. The Umayyad Caliphate was made up from the tribe of Banu Umayyah. The rival tribe of Banu Abbas longed for political authority and power, and soon set about dethroning their tribal rivals. These were not the only problems at the time. With the spread of Islam to far and distant lands, new concepts and philosophies began to creep into Islamic thought, giving rise to sometimes heretical beliefs and sects. Chief amongst these groups were the Mu'tazilites and the Kharijites. The Mu'tazilites were heavily influenced by Greek philosophy and rationalism. The Kharijites held the belief that if anyone committed a sin in Islam, they automatically became a disbeliever. They also held that those who do not agree with their views were also disbelievers. On one occasion, a group of Kharijites burst into the Imam's class with the intention of killing him and his pupils.
Who are you people?
People seeking refuge. Allah has said, if any polytheist seeks refuge, give it to him, so that he may listen to Allah's speech, and then escort him to a place of safety.
Upon hearing Abu Hanifa's response, the leader of the Kharijites turned to the rest of his group.
Recite the Qur'an for them to hear, and then escort them to their homes.
The quick thinking and intelligence of Abu Hanifa had disarmed the Kharijites. They had come with the intention of asking him his beliefs and then assassinating him. But Abu Hanifa's use of this verse placed an obligation upon them. They considered him a polytheist, yet the verse commanded that they protect him. Abu Hanifa was to have many encounters with the Kharijites and was to become a thorn in their side that they could find no way of removing. The Kharijites also believed that arbitration was forbidden. For this reason, they condemned Ali over his disputes with Muawiyah, in which he sought arbitration and mediation through others. On one occasion, a well-known Kharijite leader by the name of Dahak confronted Abu Hanifa over the position of Ali, armed with a sword and pointing it at him.
Repent! Repent from what?
I am told that you maintain that Ali agreed to have his dispute with Muawiyah decided by arbitration. As he was in the right, how could he agree to arbitration?
If it is your wish to put me to death, I have nothing to say. But if you wish to find out the truth, then permit me to argue the question with you.
I want to debate with you.
If we cannot decide the issue between ourselves, what then?
We can appoint somebody as an umpire. He can do it.
This is exactly what Ali did. Why blame him for it?
Dahak realized immediately that just as he in that very moment had asked for mediation, Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, had done just the same. Outwitted and realizing the foolishness of his argument, Dahak retired quietly. Abu Hanifa's reputation and brilliant mind were now well established. His influence was so vast, the Umayyad court began to suspect his complicity in every rebellion that took place against the ruling authority, although this was not true. Abu Hanifa tried to distance himself from the palaces of the ruling elite, fearing its attractions would destroy him. He would be immensely wary of having close ties with the ruling authority. He once said of visiting the Caliph,
"Go rarely to see him, and beware of him as if he were fire. Never go to the court except for some specific purpose, lest you lose the respect you enjoy there. Should the king offer you the post of judge, do not accept it without making sure that he approves of your exercising your personal judgment, lest you should have to act against it under official pressure. Never accept a position you are not fit to hold."
Once, a governor of Kufa by the name of Ibn Hubayra approached Abu Hanifa.
"I would consider it a favor if you could come and see me occasionally."
"What is the point in my visiting you? If you treat me kindly, I might fall into your trap. If, on the other hand, you receive me rudely, I would consider it a disgrace. I do not need anything from your treasury, and whatever I have, nobody can snatch away from me."
During the reign of the Caliph Marwan al-Himar, Yazid bin Umar Hubayra was appointed governor of Iraq. He gave political positions to outstanding authorities in Islamic law, such as Ibn Abu Layla and Dawood bin Hind. Fully aware of the excellence of Abu Hanifa, he offered him the post of chief treasurer, a post Abu Hanifa had no intention of taking up.
If Yazid were to ask me to count the doors of the mosques, I would not agree to do it for him, not to speak of my sealing the death warrant of a Muslim signed by him.
Yazid, furious with the response, ordered Abu Hanifa to be imprisoned and whipped 100 times daily. Suffering immense pain and torture, Abu Hanifa did not relent on his position, and Yazid was forced to stop the punishment. Then, in the year 132 Hijri, events took a new and dramatic turn. After all the years of plotting and planning, the Abbasids finally succeeded in overthrowing the Umayyads. Amongst the early Abbasid caliphs was Mansur. During his reign, rebellions were taking place all over the new dynasty. In the name of order, they would be quashed with brutal ferocity. Abu Hanifa had been watching the excesses of the Abbasids from the beginning of their reign and quickly concluded that they were not fit to be caliphs. He did not hide his views. This made him many enemies in the caliph's court. Rabi', the Caliph Mansur's chamberlain, was particularly hostile to Abu Hanifa. Using any opportunity he could find, he would try to bring harm to him. On one occasion, Abu Hanifa was summoned to the Caliph's court with Rabi' in attendance. Rabi' saw this as a perfect opportunity to do away with Abu Hanifa.
"Commander of the faithful, this man contradicts your well-revered ancestor, Abdullah ibn Abbas. Your ancestor said that if a man took a vow and uttered the phrase, Inshallah, a day or two later, the phrase would be considered as forming part of his vow, and it would not therefore be incumbent upon him any longer to fulfill the vow. Contrary to this, Abu Hanifa gives the ruling that if the phrase Inshallah was spoken along with the vow, it would be considered as part of the vow, while otherwise it would be utterly meaningless and ineffectual.
Commander of the faithful, Rabi' thinks that the oaths of allegiance to you that people take is ineffectual.
How is that?
He supposes that people, after swearing allegiance to you in your court, say, Inshallah, when they go home, and thus absolve themselves from their oath, so that they are no longer liable in any legal penalty for breaking it.
You cannot trick Abu Hanifah.
Abu Hanifah and Rabi' then proceeded to leave the palace and met up with one another in the courtyard.
You very nearly got me put to death today.
It was your intention to get me put to death. I only defended myself.
Not for the first time, Abu Hanifah's intelligence and quick thinking had saved him. On another occasion, Abul Abbas, who held a high position in Mansur's court, saw Abu Hanifah presenting himself to the Caliph on some business. He confided in his colleagues that this day he would make sure Abu Hanifah did not leave the court alive. Hence, he approached Abu Hanifah.
Abu Hanifah. It sometimes happens that the commander of the faithful orders us to put somebody to death, without our knowing whether or not the man is guilty and merits being put to death. In such cases, ought we to carry out the order, or to refuse to do so?
Are the Caliph's orders, in your opinion, right or wrong?
With the Caliph present, it was unthinkable that Abul Abbas would say the Caliph's orders were wrong.
Why, of course they are correct.
Then it was unnecessary for you to ask for my views.
Once again, the foolishness of his enemies was highlighted. The Caliph Mansur remained hostile and deeply suspicious of Abu Hanifah. However, there was no greater scholar alive, and Mansur knew this. For this reason, he offered him the post of judge. Abu Hanifah refused.
I am not fit for this post.
You are a liar?
If I am a liar, then my statement that I am unfit for the post of judge is true, because a liar cannot be appointed a judge.
I swear I will make you accept this post.
And I swear that I will never take it.
These events and others finally led to Mansur imprisoning Abu Hanifah. Often he would send for him and hold religious debates, yet Mansur had no intention of ever releasing Abu Hanifah. In many ways, Abu Hanifah's lifestyle was quite different from other scholars around him. Most of his academic contemporaries depended upon the Caliph or rich courtiers to sustain them. Teaching was not yet a salaried profession, so those in the field had no alternative but to seek assistance in day-to-day living. Abu Hanifah strongly opposed this practice. If one received money and favours, how could one be independent and fair in judgments? For this reason, he refused any payouts or help in his finances. On one occasion, Caliph Mansur summoned Abu Hanifah to his court to settle a dispute between himself and his wife Hara.
Abu Hanifah, how many wives may a man have?
4.
Do you hear that, Hara?
Yes, I hear it.
But this permission is only for a man who is capable of doing justice. No other man can have more than 1 wife. Allah himself says, if you doubt your ability to do justice between your wives, have only 1 wife.
Abu Hanifah returned home. A little while later, Hara sent her servant after him.
The Caliph's wife sends you her respectful salutations and says that she is grateful to you for your truthful verdict. Here is a gift of 1,000 dinars.
I do not need nor require your money. Tell the Queen that I expressed my opinion not to receive any financial reward, but because it was my duty as arbitrator.
This sincerity and non-dependence on others put him in a league of his own. His business thrived as he traded in goods worth millions. His agents, scattered all over major cities, would be busy in deals with big merchants and traders. All along, he would personally make sure that no illicitly gained money came into his income, even though this sometimes led to occasional losses. On one occasion, he sent some silk to Hafs Abdul Rahman to be sold.
Sell this silk to the people, but please note, some of the pieces, but not all, have slight defects in them. Be sure to point this out to prospective buyers before they purchase.
Of course, I shall point it out before any sale. Finest silk links that the eye has ever seen. Buy now, buy now.
Why, this is beautiful.
How much is it?
This fine piece will cost you 1,000 dinars.
Hafs continued to sell all the silk pieces that he had, and before the day was over, all had been sold. He returned with the day's takings to Abu Hanifah.
Ah, Hafs, you sold it all. How did they take to the defects?
Oh, Imam, may I lose myself? I forgot to point it out. Forgive me.
Then we have no right to this money. How much did we earn from the entire day's sale?
30,000 dinars.
Give it all away to charity.
Honest and upright in all his dealings, his primary objective in business was not to make money. He saw it as a method of self-sufficiency and helping others. Through his business, he was able to help the needy and also distribute money amongst scholars annually. He was also able to subsidize his students, many of whom would otherwise have struggled to make ends meet and attend his classes. Abu Hanifah liked to dress smartly and was a man of good taste. His garments would always be clean and of good quality. His elegant and beautiful character was matched by his good looks. His speech would be eloquent and clear, making complicated issues sound so simple. Once, the Caliph Harun al-Rashid asked Abu Hanifah's eminent student, Qadi Abu Yusuf, to describe his teacher.
As far as I know, Abu Hanifah was extremely pious. Avoided forbidden things, remained silent and absorbed in his thoughts most of the time, and answered a question only if he knew the answer. He was very generous and self-respecting, never asked a favor of anybody. He shunned the company of the worldly minded, and held worldly power and position in contempt. He avoided slander, and only talked well of people. He was a man of profound learning, and as generous with his knowledge as with his money.
With this wealth and high position in society, many men would succumb to their egos. Not so Abu Hanifah. He remained gentle, polite, generous, and of noble character. Once, while he was on his way to see an acquaintance who was unwell, he came across a man who owed him 10,000 dinars. The man tried avoiding him.
Why are you trying to avoid me?
I am ashamed to face you, as I am currently unable to repay your loan.
Well, if you are unable to repay the loan, you need not do so.
As well as being generous, Abu Hanifah was also a good neighbor. In his neighborhood there was a cobbler who would come home from work and entertain friends in the evening with wine and meat. While Abu Hanifah would be busy spending the night in prayer, the man could be heard singing, and often he would say,
Nobody cares about me. People have let me go to waste. I would have been useful in battle and siege.
Abu Hanifah would never object to his singing, simply out of neighborly consideration. One night, Abu Hanifah could not hear the singing, and on the next day inquired on his neighbor's whereabouts. He soon discovered that the police had picked up his neighbor. Abu Hanifah immediately made his way to the governor's house, who was Isa bin Musa.
Why, Abu Hanifah, why have you taken the trouble to come here? You could have sent for me.
What brings me here is that a cobbler who is my neighbor has been arrested, and I want him released.
Oh, you... Go quickly, release the cobbler at once and bring him here.
Immediately, someone was sent to release the cobbler and bring him to the governor.
Okay, have you sobered up yet? The governor wants to see you.
My friend, you are free to go. Abu Hanifah, you may take him.
Well, my friend, have I allowed you to go to waste?
No, you have proven to be a good neighbor. From this day on, I shall never go near wine.
Later, the cobbler began to attend Abu Hanifah's classes and came to be known as a scholar. Abu Hanifah always avoided speaking ill of people, especially behind their backs. He would often thank God for saving his tongue from being contaminated from this evil. On one occasion, a man approached Abu Hanifah's great contemporary, Sufyan Thawri.
You know, Sufyan, never from the lips of Abu Hanifah do we hear anything ill with regard to other people.
Abu Hanifah is not such a fool as to ruin all his good deeds.
A man of great piety and wisdom, often hearing the words of Allah through the Qur'an, would cause him to weep uncontrollably. Yazid bin Kumayt, a contemporary of Abu Hanifa, relates,
I once saw the Imam and decided to join him for the Isha prayer. He was leading the people and recited the verse Ida Zulzilat, when the earth is shaken to its final earthquake. The prayer was completed and everyone departed, yet I noticed that he had not gone and was sitting and sobbing heavily. I decided not to disturb him and returned home. When I came back to the mosque the following morning, I found Abu Hanifa sitting looking sad and holding his beard tearfully. I could hear the words,
O thou who wilt reward even the smallest virtue and punish even the smallest sin, save thy slave non-men from hellfire.
Abu Hanifa's life was dedicated to serving his faith and Allah. His daily routine would reflect this. He would begin his day with the morning prayer. After this, he would take his class in the mosque. He would then reply to questions which came from far and near. After this was complete, he would then take a session in which issues of Islamic law were discussed. All his leading students would take part, with decisions reached unanimously. After the Dhuhr prayer, Abu Hanifa would then return home, and in the summer would have a siesta. The Asr prayer would then be followed by another session of teaching, after which he would go round the city, meeting friends, visiting the sick, and helping the poor. His final teaching session would be between the Maghrib and Isha. After this, he would begin his private devotions, which would often continue throughout the night. During the winter period, he would often spend the whole night in prayer. Whenever Abu Hanifa would be faced by a question which he could not answer, he would become distressed, asking himself whether he had committed some sin of which this was the punishment. He would then perform his ablution and beg for Allah's forgiveness. Somebody narrated this to the great Sufi, Fudayl bin Iyad, who began weeping and replied,
Abu Hanifa did not have many sins to repent. That was why he thought thus. But those who are drowned in sin have innumerable calamities sent down upon them, and yet do not realize that these are warnings from Allah.
Abu Hanifa was fully aware how the human psyche operated. On one occasion, a man came to see him. He seemed distressed.
Abu Hanifa, I kept some money somewhere in my house, but now I do not remember exactly where. I now need the money badly. Please tell me how I can find it.
I do not find this kind of problem mentioned in Islamic law. Why have you come to me for advice? The best course of action is to go home and pray throughout the night.
The man returned home and began praying. He prayed for a little while, when suddenly he remembered where he had put the money. He immediately ran to Abu Hanifa, thanking him for his advice.
Oh, Abu Hanifa, it worked, I found my money.
Of course. Satan could not bear the idea of your praying for a whole night, so he made you remember at once where you had put your money. However, you ought to have prayed throughout the night by way of giving thanks to Allah.
Throughout his life, Abu Hanifa's relationship with the ruling caliphate was delicate. His piety and intelligence had kept him away from the ruling courtyards and influences of the palaces. The Caliph Mansur pressed Abu Hanifa to take the position of judge. He continued refusing, and this led to his imprisonment. Such was Abu Hanifa's popularity that while in prison, students came from far and wide to visit and study with him. Mansur realized the popularity that Abu Hanifa enjoyed, fully understanding that he had no choice but to continue allowing Abu Hanifa to teach, even behind bars. Mansur was becoming agitated with the situation that he faced. Abu Hanifa was too popular, and he feared no one. His legal rulings and fatwas could not be influenced. Furthermore, Mansur knew full well what Abu Hanifa thought of the ruling powers, and that he was not afraid to express his opinions. Then, in the year 150 Hijri, Mansur decided he could no longer cope with Abu Hanifa. Whether in prison or out, he constituted a danger to the Abbasid government. Mansur decided to do away with Abu Hanifa. He had him poisoned. Abu Hanifa attended his last prayer in front of his Lord. Then, while in a state of prostration, the final effects of the poison took hold, and Abu Hanifa died while in that posture. He was aged 70 years. A man that had spent his entire life in the service of his Creator and humanity breathed his last while worshipping his Master, a fitting end to a life of worship and service. Sadness engulfed the region and the whole Abbasid Empire as news spread of Abu Hanifa's death. Thousands made their way to the prison to confirm what they had heard. The task of washing the body in preparation for the funeral was left to the city judge, who was Hassan bin Amara. While washing the body, he would repeat to himself,
"By Allah, you were the greatest scholar and the most pious man of our time. You had all the qualities of greatness in you. You were, indeed, so great that nobody after you may reach your level."
The people of knowledge all over knew and fully understood the blow of his death. When visiting Baghdad upon Abu Hanifa's death, Abdullah bin Mubarak stated,
Abu Hanifa, may Allah have mercy on you. When Ibrahim died, he left a successor, and so did Hamad. But alas, there is no one in the whole world to take your place.
Over 50,000 people attended the first funeral prayer, yet they kept on coming, so much so that the prayer had to be performed 6 times over, and was not until sunset that the final burial took place. Abu Hanifa had left instructions that he was to be buried in any land which the ruler had not misappropriated, but he died in Baghdad and was buried there. Upon hearing Abu Hanifa's request, Mansur said,
"Who will save me from Abu Hanifa, both when he was alive and now he is dead?"
Abu Hanifa was survived by an only son, Hamad, who himself was to grow into a great scholar. Hamad followed in his father's footsteps, keeping himself aloof from the corridors of power. He had no concerns for worldly affairs, and was well known for his piety. Abu Hanifa left behind a great legacy, such that the majority of Muslims around the world follow his understanding of Islamic law. Amongst his foremost students were Abu Yusuf, Hassan as-Shaybani, and Zafar ibn Hudayl. Often, when seeing his students, Abu Hanifa would remark,
"You are the joy of my heart and the removal of my sorrow."
Abu Hanifa had around 918 dedicated students. From amongst these, around 40 assisted him in the codification of Islamic law. Each of them was specialist in their own areas. Once, a man approached the great scholar Waqi and suggested that Abu Hanifa had made an error on a certain question. He responded,
"Well, how could Abu Hanifa commit an error? He had eminent men to assist him. In analogy, Abu Yusuf and Zafar. In hadith, Yahya bin Zayda, Hafs bin Riyad, Haban and Mundal. In lexicography and the Arabic language, Kazin bin Ma'an. In devotion and piety, Daud al-Tayyi and Fudel bin Riyad. How could one, with such men by his side, commit an error? Even if he were to commit one, would these men let him do so?
Often, the statement is made that you should judge a teacher according to their students. If this is the case, then Abu Hanifa propels himself to lofty heights, heights that very few have ever reached. His outstanding abilities and innovative methods of teaching forced his students to think and stretch their minds. His style was unique. He would enter his class and suddenly throw a complex issue at his students. Debate would then occur, and consensus would then be reached, and a verdict derived. He encouraged his students to challenge his opinion. Far from being offended, he saw it as a way of deriving the truth. It was a method of teaching unique to Abu Hanifa's school, and is one of the reasons his school of thought gained such eminence. He was blessed with amazing insight, and was able to view issues in a way that others could not. On one occasion, a man approached Abu Hanifa and his students and posed a bizarre question.
I have a question.
What do you say about a man who doesn't aspire for paradise, doesn't fear hell, and doesn't fear Allah? He eats dead meat, prays without ruku and sujood, and bears witness to that which he cannot see. He hates the truth and loves trials. He escapes and runs away from mercy. He believes the Jews and the Christians.
So, my students, what do you think?
This is a clear description of a disbeliever.
No, on the contrary, this is the description of a pious man. He aspires for the Creator of the heavens and fears the Creator of hell, and he fears no injustice from Allah. He eats fish, and he prays the funeral prayer. He bears witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger, yet he hasn't seen either. He hates the truth, which is death, because he wishes to obey Allah for longer. The trials are his children and money. Mercy is the rain, and he believes the Jews when they say the Christians have nothing to stand for, and he believes the Christians when they say the Jews have nothing to stand for.
In this incident, Abu Hanifa found a reasonable explanation for each situation where there didn't seem to be one. This was a combination of always thinking good of people, as well as seeing things which others would innocently miss. His amazing insight would help his students develop their thought and intelligence. With this group of students, Imam Abu Hanifa codified Islamic law. Previous to this, the rules that governed Islam were preserved through oral tradition and had not been codified into any coherent discipline. There were no methods of reasoning, no rules for the derivation of orders, no grading of traditions, and no principles of analogical deduction. Imam Abu Hanifa was aware that Islam had spread to far and distant lands, and a new multitude of situations connected with Islamic law had arisen, which could only be dealt with through some legal code. His extensive experience with trade and public affairs acquainted him with the legal requirements of the society of the day. He was constantly receiving hundreds of legal questions from all over the Islamic world, and was fully aware of the mistakes of the jurists. Both of these strengthened his resolve to put a legal system in place. A delicate and gigantic project, Imam Abu Hanifa undertook it with all the intelligence and wisdom that had come to symbolize him. He surrounded himself with specialists in all the Islamic disciplines, forming a board of his most trusted students. No conclusion was ever recorded unless all the members of the board were present and the decision was reached unanimously. Thanks to this compilation, Imam Abu Hanifa's school became a veritable law college, whose alumni were then, in turn, appointed in large numbers to judicial and administrative posts. Unfortunately, no works of Abu Hanifa himself remain with us today. Instead, we have the writings of two of his foremost students, Abu Yusuf and Muhammad Hassan al-Shaybani, who presented the legal questions dealt with by Abu Hanifa in a more detailed manner with elaborate annotations. Imam Abu Hanifa pioneered the formulation of the rules of deduction, which made Islamic law a regular science. It was an astonishing achievement, which no other man was capable of at a time when the religious sciences were still in their infancy. The beauty of Imam Abu Hanifa lay in his ability to accept criticism and disagreement from his students. Motivated solely by a search for the truth, he would often say,
"This is our opinion. It is the best we can determine. If anyone comes with a better position, he is more entitled to be correct than we are."
It is a famous point of fact that Imam Abu Hanifa's two foremost students, Abu Yusuf and Muhammad Hassan al-Shaybani, differed from their teacher in many rulings. The legal system that came to be known as the Hanafi school spread all over the Islamic world. The Hanafi school became the main legal system from Asia Minor to Bukhara. Most rulers of Islamic empires and countries followed the system. The decline of the Abbasids saw various dynasties rise to power. The powerful and warrior Seljuks, who ruled for a long period the lands between Jerusalem and Constantinople, adopted the Hanafi school. The Turkish sultans, who gave birth to the Ottoman Empire, adopted the school, as did the Mughal Empire of the subcontinent. In short, the Hanafi school has enjoyed vast exposure that no other school can match. As a result, Hanafi scholars of latter periods have added much to it, not only by elaborating principles, but also by way of formulating them. Some of the greatest works in legal philosophy were developed by Hanafi jurists. Chief amongst these are works on the methodology of law derivation by Abu Bakr al-Razi al-Jassas in the 4th century, as well as other works later on. This development could not have occurred without the initial stages set in place by Imam Abu Hanifah. Muslims all over the world owe their understanding of Islam and its rules to Imam Abu Hanifah. His derivation of rules in the fields of ritual worship, civil life, criminal systems, penal and revenue laws, contracts, inheritance and wills and other matters are a service that the Muslim world would be at a loss without. His contribution is not lost on other scholars of differing schools. Their praise and respect for Imam Abu Hanifah is undoubted. Imam Shafi once remarked,
"The person who wishes to excel in Islamic law is bound to be in need of Abu Hanifah. Imam Abu Hanifah is one of the personalities who is divinely guided with deep understanding by Allah."
Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal once, while asked about Abu Hanifah, said,
Subhanallah! In matters of knowledge, piety, abstinence from the dunya and preference to the hereafter, he occupied such a lofty stage that nobody else would be able to occupy it. He was undoubtedly lashed for the simple reason that he declined the post of a judge offered to him by Abu Ja'far Mansur. May Allah shower his mercy upon him, and may he attain the pleasure of Allah.
Islam is preserved through great men like Imam Abu Hanifah, men who are able to distinguish themselves through their remarkable intelligence and piety. Their amazing ability, gifted to them by Allah, is witnessed by Muslims all over the world, who to this day follow the Qur'an and prophetic message through the teachings of such men. In a time when religious learning has been relegated to a secondary status, we must remember and understand the true nature of knowledge. Imam Abu Hanifah has left behind a legacy that indeed will not be surpassed, for as time progresses, so we will see the removal of knowledge as foretold by the Messenger of Allah, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. In Imam Abu Hanifah, we have one of the shining lights of the Muslim world, a man who was blessed with immense intelligence and sincerity, who gave immense service to Islam and the Muslims. Known as the Great Imam, Al-Imam Al-A'zam, his rank and honor has been preserved for over 1200 years, a blessing from Allah Most High. Success is in the hands of the Creator, and to Him do we turn for salvation and guidance. May Allah accept the efforts of Imam Abu Hanifah and grant him the highest stations of paradise, and may his legacy inspire others on the blessed path of seeking knowledge.
سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ندعوك ونرجو غفرانك ربي سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك سبحانك ربي سبحانك سبحانك ما أعظم شانك ندعو